Liham, a girl 27 years old, with a small figure texting a pale face, but the eyes always carry an unspeakable sadness. Born in a normal working family in West Hame, grew up with the dream of becoming a teacher, standing on the podium, imparting knowledge to children who have been deeply printed in her mind since childhood. But life does not always happen, as we wish after graduating from Hame pedagogy to try to find work in schools in Ho Chi Minh City. But not successfully. Without enough relationship money to run into payroll, she had to give up her dream of financial pressure from her family and harsh criticism from her mother and daughter. Studying for the end was just a little chores of money for the public cost of those words like a magneton. Hame's heart made her add self-deprecation, and tired she plied to be a Beggar receptionist at Harapentant Hotel in the center of Saigon, where she faced the glare of the glamour of the world. She knew she never belonged to this hotel. As a symbol of the luxury where celebrity entrepreneurs and the most powerful people in the city of Tin go to Hame, work at the front desk. Lol. A's dress up bright, smiling, and handle all situations with absolute professionalism. But behind that smile are the tiredness of every day of Hame's, a series of annoying requirements from customers who have been reproved, and sometimes to Belgium from their colleagues who consider her to be low-level employees who only follow orders and have no future. But Hame still tries to be displeased with her. This job is the last hope to be able to feed herself in this expensive city. She lives in Adignan room in the district, far from the center, with an old fan and a bill. Else off her salary each month, just enough to pay for rent and basic spending, has no room for luxury pleasure. So a fateful evening plant had occurs when the hotel hosts a large event with the presence of wealthy and powerful Hamachar actors busy welcoming the luxury guests in the dress. The assembly walked on the gleaming hall of gleaming stone lamps hanging on the ceiling, of the glass of wine hanging into each other fire, and the laughter of fake shoes in that splendid air. And noon expected appearance broke. All lean old man and liquor wearing old clothes groaned through the hotel's large glass door, in his hand only a small cloth bag of torn shoes, and tired eyes, but full of air. Patience in the lobby immediately changed the laughter that stopped the eyes of everyone pouring toward the old man. Some people wrinkle with various while guarding, awkwardly watching, do not know whether to intervene. And then Mr. Lamb's cold voice, a famous, rich and arrogant old businessman, rang up to break the tense atmosphere of the old man. Who wants to enter this place? What kind of guy to let this guy come into this hotel? That let the guy appear like this? Poor management of that saying like a blade in Hame's heart. She glanced at the old man, who still stood still without saying anything. Leaning hand shivering grabbed his cloth bags, the colleagues around bowing their heads, avoiding his eyes, pretending to be busy. Noon wants to intervene because they are afraid of losing their job, or afraid of disturbing the powerful guest. Hame holding his hand tightly, feeling like the blood in her boiling, taking a deep breath, trying to regain calm. Sorry, Mr. Hame stepped up ahead of the trembling voice, but the steadfast gaze of this old man is also a guest, and we cannot treat anyone impolitely as they enter here. The hotel lobby, as quietly, all eyes pouring towards Hame. Mr. Limloft, they're laughing at their guarding this kind of person. She thought she was daring to speak like that, but Hame did not back down, her knowing what was waiting for her, but still decided to act because she believed she had to stand up to defend the right, even if only once. The air in the hotel lobby became tense to suffocate the guests in the luxury suite, pulling her eyes towards Hame, interspersed with curiosity and unpleasant. Colleagues of other reception staff bowed to avoid Lai's power guest without who dares to distract. Mr. Min hotel management is also standing nearby, clearly confused by this situation. Hame still stands firmly in the back of his eyes, looking at Mr. Lam, despite her shaking inside, but her self-esteem and empathy for the old man made her unable to silence her again. This time, a strong voice. Sir, this is a public space. We cannot discriminate against anyone based on their appearance. This old man is human, and he has the right to respect him. Big smile, a full smile, ridiculing him, folding his arms in front of the chest of contempt, eyes directed towards Hame. This girl thought she was a lamb receptionist who dared to talk ethically to me. If she didn't expel this person immediately, I would ask for the rationale to remove Min. The hotel manager immediately approached Hame. His eyes clearly reveal his anger and worried. He whispered enough so that everyone around him could hear what Hame's doing. So a VIP guest call to protect them out immediately, or she is responsible for all. Hame turned her manager, looking at their disappointed eyes. She didn't expect that he was always proud of the top service, bowing down fair words just to please a wealthy guest. He knew that if she didn't follow, her career would end right here. But if she followed, her conscience would never forgive. In the short moment, the image of her father appeared in her father's head, a hard worker who spent their whole life working to raise his family, always taught her to live being aware of the right protection, even if that makes her pay the price of that statement. That urged to make an apology decision, but I can't do that. Hamir replied, definitely trembling, but not hiding determination. If this makes me lose my job as well, but I can't stand still when someone is treated unfairly like this. Her words silenced the hotel lobby, some customers looking at her with surprise, but also the flashy and unpleasant eyes. Mr. Min managed red face with his anger turned to the guard and ordered to get this old man out of here immediately. Two guards immediately moved forward gently but firmly to shake the old man out before being taken away. Looking at Hami, his gaze containing something very difficult to describe, a deep gratitude, but he quietly said, "Thank you, young girl. I will never forget this." When the old man hid behind the glass door, Hami felt like his strength also left her body, standing still a while before Mr. Min stepped closer. "Give her a sheet of paper." This is Mr. Min's decision to suspend her work coldly said her actions had seriously damaged the image of the hotels. She should collect furniture and leave today. Hami grabbed her hand, paper trembling, but she didn't cry. How she knew she had done right despite the painful consequences of walking through the hall. Last time she felt the curious gazes judged from those around her, but that no longer matters. Outside the Saigon night hotel, still bustling luxury cars, she walked in the night wind, wondering if her decision was really worth, but deeply she knew she could not turn her back on the values she always cherished. In the narrow in that night, Hama lay quietly on the stiff bed, light from the street sneaking through the window, projecting her face, but the future ahead became more blind than ever. But she didn't know that her decision to protect their right that night will change her life forever. The next morning, Hami woke up in a heavy mood. Last night she poked all night, the pictures in the hotel lobby and the old man's thank you look up in her mind. She didn't know if she could get through the difficult days ahead or not. The job lost this month's salary was not enough to pay for the inn, and she also dared not call home to ask for help because her mother would not stop blowing her small curtains in the morning light in room shining in. Instead of carrying against their relief, it only highlights the combing in the rooms. She looked around her little room where, filled with unpaid bills and old supplies. At that moment, a strange sound interrupted her thoughts, beeping, the sound from the outside, pulling Hami back to reality. She stepped to the small window and looked down at the glossy black Limousine parked right in front of her old inn door. The car looked completely incompatible with the scenery around the shabby houses. The cocktail moon and the street full of potholes in the alley curiously looked at the car, discussing wondering if this car came here for who it was. Certainly unable to relate to her as soon as she was trying to guess when the Limousine door opened and a middle-aged man walked down him, wearing a black suit of high-grade masters, and the gloomy in his hand was a white envelope. Man heading straight to Hami's inn door. The footsteps of Mr. Vang Lo in the small corridor for a while after the heels sounding the hoof of Hami. She was hesitant a little before opening the door. When the door opened, the man who smiled politely and bowed to. "Hi, Miss Le Hami. I am Tran Van Khan's private assistant. Tran Hu Duo." I was sent to send her a message to Tran Hong Hami's name to stop her from memory of this name unfamiliar. But something made her associate with the old man last night before she asked Mr. Khan, who gave Mr. Khan's Feng Belgium to her, who wanted to send her sincere thanks for his brave action. Yesterday he would like to meet you to talk. If you agree, please join me in the car. We will go right now. Hama looking at the envelope in her hands, feeling confusing and ginsenging her mind. Opening the envelope, inside is a tasteful card with a handwritten letter. "Miss Hami, I am the one you defended last night. Thank you for kindness and courage. I want to talk to you about an important thing. If you agree to come with Mr. Khan to see him, don't worry. This is a sincere invitation to cherish." Tran Huyang Hama to lift their head up. She looked at the man in front of her, looking for any signs of lies. But Miss Khan kept this calm face, politely smile. Without suspicion, she glanced at the Lauren luxury waiting under the street and looked at their rolled-in room. Whether this was a trap or just a confusion, but inside her a strange feeling that this was an opportunity she shouldn't miss. She kept assured we just wanted to express her gratitude to Hamid, quickly locking the inn door and following Miss Khan as she entered the interior limousine that made her overwhelmed with the spacious space, upscale in every detail, exuding the cars, slowly rolling the wheel away from the small alley through the glass door. Hami saw familiar Saigon streets passing, but this time it didn't feel like every day. She knew this trip would take her into a new turn in her life, where she never thought she would got to the Limousine rolling wheel. Through the crowded streets of Saigon, Hama sitting silently, her hands tightly tied together, she constantly wondered who the Kiaman was, why he wanted to meet her, and most importantly, what would happen next, feeling of anxiety and curiosity that made her unable to sit still after about 30 minutes of moving the car stop in front of a luxurious villa located in a quiet area, far from the bustling city of the Large Iron. Gate slowly opened to reveal a large campus with a brilliant flower garden and color house with ancient architecture exemplifies Hami's noble appearance. Never seen such place in his life. Khan stepped down before politely opening the car door for her to invite Mumming waiting for her inside. Nodded into the car. She hesitated to look around before following Mr. Khan's foot into the soap mountain paved with granular art paintings hanging on the wall, along with light from the sophisticated boss lamps that make the inner space both warm and Wu finally led her in a large room decorated as a library of tall bookshelves filled with classic books, and in the middle of the room is a meticulous, sly-carved wooden chair sitting there. New and eels is the old man. Hamid protected the night before, but a day he no longer wore down torn cloths. Instead he wore on himself a traditional silk suit, with radiant face and calm style exceeded the warmest voices. She had no need to sit down. I would like to thank her for her kindness yesterday. He bowed to salute and sat down in the chair opposite her grandfather. She did not fight at the confusion, but could not stop the curiosity of raising D. I don't think I'll see him in this situation really. Who he's and why he wants to meet my old grandson. Tran Huyang may be that name unfamiliar to her, but I am the founder and run a large corporation. However, now I have withdrawn from the market and spent time studying social, especially the issues on which the floor of the weak class faced here and here. Hamid didn't hide the surprise but why he dressed like that yesterday and appeared in Mr. Duong Hotel. Gently put the tea down. That version as part of my study. I want to know this society treated the weak people. Rasao yesterday. I deliberately dressed like a homeless person to try how everyone's reaction was unexpected. That last night's incident was a test, so his actions were just by chance. Mr. Yang shook his head. His eyes became more serious than Hami. She passed a test that very few people could do while everyone turned their backs or breathed. She stood up to protect me, despite the personal risk that indicates she had courage and a loving heart that this society lacked. Hami felt her cheeks hot, and she didn't think her small actions had such great significance, but she still didn't understand why Mr. Duong wanted to meet her. Mr. Duong continued. Hami, I didn't just want to thank her for inviting her to participate in a project. The judgment, I'm working on a project that changes the way society treats weak people. But I need a companion, and I believe that you are the right person. Of Mr. Duong's words that surprises Hami, but he's just an ordinary receptionist. He has no experience or ability to help Mr. Duong smile herself proved her ability by yesterday's actions. That I need from her is not super educational or special skills, but the certainty and determination of which she's had the rest. I'll help, she developed. Hami silently, she didn't know how to answer part of her. Feeling excited about this opportunity, but the other part was afraid of the responsibility it brought her, bowing down her hands with a glimpse of thinking. Yang added a softer voice. Then I knew this was a difficult decision. She didn't need to answer immediately. But remember, the opportunity to do the right thing doesn't always appear, and sometimes we have to step out of the safe zone to make a change after a thought. Me lifted up the eyes, have lighted up the determination. Mr. Yang Chi does not know how much he can do, but if he believes my grandson is willing to try. Yang laughing at his glittering eyes so good that this is not only an opportunity for her to change her life, but also to make a greater change for those around. That meeting that changed Hami's fate. And although she doesn't know what the road ahead will be, but she feels that she has chosen the right after the decision meeting with Mr. Tranudong's life turning in a new direction. Mr. Duong took her into a special training program at his own villa, a months-long journey where Hami not only studied but also faced the facts of society that she had previously only heard through books in the first days. Mr. Duong focused on helping Hami understand the panoramic picture of society in the large library. He presented documents on inequality from cold statistics to heartbreaking stories about the homeless people of street and street. The elderly abandon this information, makes Hami unwinding. She knows whether Hami, Duong says the socially immersed gaze operated by the powerful and weak people are often forgotten as if they don't exist. But the truth is that without them we wouldn't have been living this life. Hami begin to realize that the world out there is more Complicated than what Shiva imagined is not just injustice, but also a system that has been established to protect the rights of the few wealthy while the rest abandoned in poverty and desperation. Mr. Duong do not let Ha-mi sit in the library. He takes her out to places where she had never before set foot, in the drive mouse, in the outskirts of the center of fake Th Fosters, or dark curses, where children wandering, where he hides in a hidden place at a hidden center of Ha-mi, elderly nurturing center, witnessing the heartbreaking sights of a weak woman lying on a cold iron bed, staring up the ceiling as she grabbed her hand, smiling and said, "Thank you, miss. Long ago someone held my hand." That sentence made Ha crying. She realized that no one needed money or big things. Sometimes a little interest would make the difference in training. Ha-mi not only learned to see the problem but also face personal challenges. Mr. Duong asked her to practice speaking in front of the small group, to write reports about the problems she observed, and even argue with him about the initial solutions. Ha-mi was shaking and lack of self-consciousness, believing you don't think you're good enough to do these things. She told Mr. Yang after a failed training session. He just laughed lightly. The confidence that doesn't come from thinking you're good at saying that what she's doing is right. And then she'll see gradually over the day, Ha-mi improves her learning to analyze the problem of presenting ideas and, most importantly, how to inspire others. Mr. Yang taught her that to change a society, first to change her own perceptions, and those who are pulling around the time she began to undertake her first projects. She quickly realized that this journey was not easy for her. Articles and statements about social injustice began to attract attention, but not all positively. Some supporters, but many others criticized who this little girl was but demanded social changes. Comments on social media, mocking just an unemployed front desk, no acts as a hero, increasingly aggressive attacks on Ha-mi received an anonymous letter put in front of the door home. "Stop, otherwise the consequences will be very bad." Ha-mi feels scared, but she doesn't back down. Mr. Duong Hey just replied, "Don't let the threats distract her. That's just how they hide their fear of her, because she's doing what's right over time." Ha-mi began to see small changes in her articles about the abandoned elderly being shared widely, and many people began to participate in her campaign. A group of volunteers established to help improve conditions at the aged nursing center Sunday. Ha-mi receives messages from a grandmother living in the center she once visited to thank her for helping the center get more beds. "Now we're not sleeping on the cold floor anymore." That brief message makes Ha-mi crying. She realizes that even though her journey is long and difficult, their little efforts are gradually making a difference throughout the journey. Mr. Duong, always beside Ha-mi, taught her not only by words, but also through practical actions. Once when she lamented the pressures she said facing Mr. Duong said, "Ha-mi, I've failed many times in my life, but I've learned that the big change never comes immediately. It's like ringing seeds. She won't see results right away. But if the tree patiently grows into the left skin, that says it becomes the guide to Ha-mi. She knows that she's on the right track, even though the road is very long, and looks after Guy. Ha-mi not only changes herself, but begins to inspire those around her, from an unknown receptionist who has become a person pioneer in raising awareness of social issues. But she also understands that this is just the beginning. There is still a lot of things she must learn, a lot of challenges she must overcome, and above all, she knows she is not alone. With Mr. Duong's guidance and support from her companions, Ha-mi ready to continue, no matter how difficult the road has been. Time passes by. Ha-mi becomes more familiar with her role in the journey of social change. Under Mr. Duong's guidance, she has grown up greatly. But an event, the big happening, caused Ha-mi to face the biggest challenge of her life, a morning. Ha-mi refrigerator receives an emergency call from Mr. Duong Hospital, who became a companion teacher, and her greatest inspiration is in critical condition. Because cancer has metastasized her, immediately rushed to the hospital. When she entered Mr. Duong's room, lying on a thinly faced bed but the eyes still shining. Ha-mi Duong called her name with a weak voice, as warm. She did very well. "I know she could continue her child this road even if I am no longer here." Ha-mi sitting down by the bed, clutching his hand, tears rolling long on his cheek, and grandchildren's cheek. "Can't do this alone. He needs." Mr. Duong smiling weakly. "She's not alone. What we've done, not only stop here, I've left all my plan and financial resources for her. Use them to continue remembering that the greatest power is not money or power, but in trust and the right thing before the last breath. Duong handed Hami an envelope, and this is all I left to her. She would know what to do. Mr. Duong left in peace, leaving Hami with great loss, but she knew she could not stop, because what Mr. Duong had initiated needs to continue. The envelope that Mr. Duong left behind contains more than what Hami imagined, in which the whole study document of social reform plan and a private letter to her. In his letter, writing Hami, she was the person I put the whole belief what I left, not as her own property, but as a tool for her to help those in need. Remember that change does not come from someone, it needs the consensus of the whole community to continue. Sowing the seed of kindness and fairness. I believe in her, accompanied by the ownership of Mr. Duong's entire property, including the separation of a large financial fund and important relationships. Hami understands that this is not only a material heritage but also a huge responsibility she must bear on the documents and plans that Mr. Duong's Hami begins to build, a non-profit organization named the Flame of Justice. This organization focuses on reforming the social welfare system, especially caring for the elderly, orphaned, and homeless. Organizing community consciousness campaigns, calling for funding from businesses, and building volunteer networks across the country. Her speeches gradually become famous, not only by sincerity, but also because of the specific actions she and her organization have taken. One of the organization's first great successes is improving conditions at an elderly nurturing center where Hami previously visited. With funding from Mr. Duong's foundation was repaired to provide new beds and improve nutrition for the instruments. But Hami's journey was not flat. The beneficial powers associated with maintaining injustice began to protest. Some powerful politicians and businessmen agreeing to hinder her projects, from using small media to personal threats. Sanchez received a lean letter warning that if she continued post-hinding it would be very serious. But this time Hami didn't feel afraid. She remembered Yang's fear of her, because she was doing the right thing instead of backing her publicly. The information the organization gathered exposing abused nefarious funds from her social welfare budget. Her courage made the public strong support, and her movement grew strongly. After months of struggle, the government forced to investigate the allegations that Hami, the result of a series of corrupt officials handling abused funds, refunded in their reformed social welfare system of centers for nurturing the elderly to pay orphans and homeless support areas, beginning to receive proper attention and funding. One day, Hami returns to the nurturing center, where everything starts. Fake tools here now have full meal beds and the laughter back on their face. A grandmother who held her hand the day before said, "Thank Hami for doing something we never dreamed of," returning from the center. Hami standing in front of the small table placed in her organization. On that inscription, as saying by Mr. Duong, "We cannot change the world, but can change the world of a Hami man." Gently put his hands on the touching heart, she whispered, "Master, I have made the first step, but this is only the beginning." That promises to continue this journey until no one is left behind under Hami's leadership. Organizing the fire of justice continues to spread the power of kindness and fairness. Story of the little reception girl who dares to stand up against injustice has become the delegate, the statue of courage and faith, and although the journey ahead still many challenges, Hami know that the flame Duong has lit in her will never turn off.